Guys, welcome. And who dat? I'm Joe. Thanks for tuning in to Rosenfield 10, where I cover our beloved Bless You Boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints. If you're a Who Dat fan, subscribe to my channel. I love the Saints as much as you do. Put me in your subscriptions. Anytime I have a video, you'll hear what I'm thinking. You let me know what you think in the comments below. I respond to my comments. And today we're going to break down the roster once again, like I like to do every week. This is going to be an early camp roster breakdown. We're going to go through every player on the roster, and we're going to talk about how they are looking throughout the first week of training camp for the 2026 NFL season. Typically, I pull up the entire roster, and you guys get a chance to look at it. No other channel does this. And today we'll get a little more in depth and talk about how each player's performing so far according to the reporting coming out of training camp. So what I'll do is I'll show the entire offense first. There's your complete offense right now. Jalen Polk, the wide receiver, has retired. He's no longer on the roster. And that means we have an extra roster spot, and we have not signed anybody yet. I'm not sure if we're going to address the empty spot with another wide receiver, but as soon as the Saints add another body to this camp roster, I will let you know. There's my little Kit Kat right there, and you'll probably see a bunch of cats. Let's take a look at the entire defense real quick. And that's our beautiful Bless You Boys in black and gold on defense. Brian Brissy has not officially been placed on IR yet, but I do not have him on the roster anymore. And I'm assuming as soon as he's put on IR, we're gonna have an extra roster spot there as well. So we could be looking forward to a couple of extra bodies coming into camp. Now I just brought up the entire rosters there in full screen. If you want to look at it any further, just pause the video and look at it. We're going to break down each position, and let's start with the quarterbacks, and I'll have each position group here. And I'm going to highlight the guy that is standing out the most through the first week of camp. So we've got Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler, Zach Wilson, Hunter Deckers. We expect some growing pains, especially with the offense. The first few days of camp don't involve pads, and then the pads come on, and there's this acclimation process. Tyler Shuck has looked fine. There have been days when he's been really accurate. There's been days when he's taking chances, and overall, through the first week of camp, the defense has really won out over the offense. Once the pads came on, the offensive lines and defensive lines were able to do some extra stuff, and then the running backs were able to show a little bit. Sometimes they're getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage. Sometimes they're gaining a bunch of yards before contact. So it's all a mix right now, and I keep stressing the caveat that it is the first week of camp. The offense is going to start slow. So I don't have Tyler Shuck highlighted here, but he is doing just fine. He's not going to turn into this Pro Bowl quarterback overnight, I don't think. And Tyler Shuck seems to be a gamer. And when you add in, game situations where he can utilize his legs and make things happen on the move and stuff like that. I mean, we saw it last year. Shuck was not overly impressive in camp last year. He didn't even get the starting job. But once he was put as the starter in the actual games, he showed some things. So I'm not down on Tyler Shuck yet, but I don't have him highlighted. I have Spencer Rattler highlighted because Spencer Rattler has had incremental growth throughout his couple of years in the league. And in this camp, he looks like he's taken another step. Now, if this were an actual quarterback competition, would Rattler be fighting for that starting job? I don't know. He won it out last year, but the job is for Tyler Shuck this year. And all Spencer Rattler can do is go out there and make things happen. Spencer Rattler, throughout the first week of camp, has been more successful with big plays down the field. And he's showing a lot of confidence. He's showing great arm strength. And, the progression that we saw last year, I think, from his rookie year was his accuracy, his ability to avoid pressure. We just didn't win any games when he was as the starting quarterback, when he was the starting quarterback. So he's looking good, and I'm going to highlight him here. I think that it's his job as the backup. I think if Shuck has to miss any time at all, I think Rattler's going to give us a nice chance to win. Rattler performed really good last year as a quarterback, a starting quarterback. As far as the quarterback goes, he didn't make a lot of mistakes. It was to the point where we were 1-7, and you felt like, well, Rattler's doing his job. The team just isn't winning. And then Shuck comes in and we start winning games against some lesser opponents, yeah. But, ultimately, if you're the quarterback, you've got to perform so well that your team is winning. A lot of stuff is put on the quarterback. It's unfair, but that's just the way it is. All I can say is Rattler is such a good backup option right now that I think other teams in the league should really be interested in trying to trade for him, because I think Rattler would start on a few teams in the league. Perhaps as Saints fans, you think maybe even this team. Well, he's looking good right now. Zach Wilson is hot and cold. There are throws Zach Wilson makes in camp right now. That's Bellamy. There are throws that Zach Wilson makes that are great, and you can see why he was a first round pick, and he's got the arm talent, and then he makes some decisions that, leave you baffled. I think that Wilson has turned the ball over more than any of the other quarterbacks here. So when it's all said and done, I think we're only going to carry two quarterbacks. Zach Wilson has a lot of starting ability in the league, former first round pick. So there's a chance we could keep him on the practice squad. And there's also a really big chance that somebody who is desperate for a quarterback would pluck him right off the practice squad, especially if injuries are involved. So that's where I'm at with Zach Wilson. Hunter Deckers, he just hasn't had much of a chance to show anything because there's only so many reps in camp. So Hunter Deckers is a guy that Kellen Moore likes. Hunter Deckers had some time to play in the spring league, and he was on our practice squad on and off last year. My little kitten's getting curious right now. You can't go on the computer, little guy. You can't get on the computer, my little buddy. So I think Hunter Deckers is just basically a camp body, and our intention is going to be to put him on the practice squad and use him if needed. That's your quarterbacks. Let's take a look at the running backs. I've got Kendre Miller highlighted here. Kendre Miller was experiencing back spasms since the pads have been put on. It's not a good sign for an oft-injured running back, but throughout many camps in the OTAs and the beginning of training camp, Kendre Miller was available and practicing. And the reason I have Kendre Miller highlighted is because he is a special kind of talent. There are some reporters that say if everybody's healthy, Kendre Miller is the guy with the most overall talent. And that's saying a lot. But the best ability is availability. So we have to keep that caveat in mind as well. Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne's doing good. He's learning the system. He's catching the ball well out of the backfield. He's got that one-cut quickness, and you only see so much. The pads have only been on for a couple of days now. And he hasn't jumped off the field, but he's obviously going to be our starter. Alvin Kamara has looked fine. He dropped a few passes early on, but I think the connection with Shuck and AK in the passing game is there now. We haven't heard about any drops in the last couple of days. and Kamara still has some really nice physicality and burst at his ripe old age. So, not going to be highlighting Achan or Kamara, but they're both there. They're both talented. I think it's going to work out just fine. Devin Neal has had a couple of big runs. Devin Neal has been, solid. I think there's a big drop off between Miller's ability and Neal's ability, and then you guys. And then after Neal, there's a even bigger drop off. So Devin Neal has got an injury right now. He was injured today with a hamstring. That happened in camp last year. So Devin Neal might not be available for the first couple of preseason games. We're going to see. The severity of the hamstring hasn't been reported yet, but that's not a good sign. Audric Estime to me seems like a gamer, much like Shuck. Estime hasn't done anything in camp or in these practices to really stand out, but we saw him have the workload in a game and did really well. So that's the way I look at Audric Estime. He's a gamer, and he's also a guy that can survive on a practice squad. But there are teams out there that know what's up with Estime, and yeah, it'd be tricky to keep him around on a practice squad. It'd be a risk. I think we're only going to carry 4 running backs, so it's really up to Kendre Miller to stay healthy, and it never happens. So hopefully Miller stays healthy. He's part of our running back room on the final active roster, and then if an injury does occur, Estime is still around to elevate and to put on our roster. That's the way I'm looking at it. Because Miller's not practicing right now, it's going to give a lot more opportunities for Ty Chandler and C.J. Donaldson. Kellen Moore has said that he thinks all the running backs in this room have the ability to play on Sundays, and Ty Chandler has done it in the league. He's shown a lot as a running back and as a returner. So Ty Chandler and C.J. Donaldson are getting opportunities right now that they may not have gotten when Miller was healthy. That's going to be a That's going to be a probably down to the wire decision for Kellen Moore. If you really want to emphasize special teams, especially a guy that can return, if you want to emphasize a guy with Chandler's abilities, being quick and a good receiver and stuff like that, there's a chance Chandler makes the roster. I mean, if Devin Neal and Kendre Miller want to stay injured all the time and they can't stay healthy, then yeah, Estime and Chandler would be the next guys up. I think that's going to come down to the end of training camp. CJ Donaldson, I don't think there's much he can do to make this roster, but there's a lot he can do to get on the practice squad. I mean, I'm thinking ultimately you keep the first 4 here, and then your practice squad is Audric Estime and Ty Chandler. But Chandler's got experience in this league. Estime has experience in this league. Anybody could swoop in and grab him at any time. CJ Donaldson will be a guy that we hope is still available if we have to add a body to the practice squad. And we're going to give Donaldson, I would hope a couple of years to develop into something. That's your running back room. Let's pull up the wide receivers. No more Jalen Polk. I've got 3 players highlighted throughout the first week of camp. Jordan Tyson, he just looks the part. Everyone says he looks different. He moves different than everybody else. Jordan Tyson's an obvious first round draft pick type of player, and there's a potential there for him to be special in this league. He's also been returning punts on and off throughout minicamp, OTAs, and even in training camp. It's something that Barry and Brown hasn't done, and from what I've heard early on in camp, Barry and Brown has issues with judging punts in the air. There may be a situation where we need to keep a guy that can return punts. That could be Ty Chandler. That could just be Jordan Tyson. It'd be taking a risk. It could also be Trey Palmer, who's done that in the league, returned punts. And if we keep six wide receivers, I think Trey Palmer's ability to return punts might give him the edge as the sixth wide receiver. Devon Bailey has been solid. He's been pretty good. His hands are so consistent. He's got that size. And I'm highlighting him as well as Jordan Tyson here for being a camp standout. Chris Olave, our starter, just signs the new contract. He wasn't involved in the team drills the first couple of days of camp. Olave's found his footing though, and Shuck and Olave are clicking right now in camp. Maybe after another week of camp going into preseason, I can highlight Olave as a camp standout. But for right now, Tyson and Bailey are those standouts, as well as Berrien Brown. Berrien Brown is the darling right now. He's had a couple of drops, and even through mini camps and OTAs, there were questions about his ability to find the ball in the air. He had a few drops back then, too. But he's also had the ability to bounce back and to show that he can make big plays. And Berrien Brown is winning with separation. He's receiving the ball all over the field. He's not only doing it deep, he's doing it on the sideline, he's doing it in the middle of the field. He's so quick and he's learning a lot. So he can do it with sweeps and stuff like that from the backfield and everything else. So Berrien Brown is the biggest highlight of this group through the first week of camp because he's showing it all. And Kellen Moore has emphasized that the hardest part of a young receiver is the mental capacity of it all, and that he's impressed with how Berrien Brown's been able to do all of that. And he's getting out on the field and he's doing it. He's probably got the most catches out of anybody in camp right now, and you also have to highlight Spencer Rattler for that because Rattler knows when he's out there with the second team, Berrien Brown is a guy he wants to get the ball to, and he's getting the ball to him. So it's a nice little connection. I think Berrien Brown is easily on this active roster when it's all said and done. Bryce Lance is a guy who is lining up everywhere, and his size and his speed, plus the fact that he probably wouldn't make it through waivers. Bryce Lance is definitely going to be in the mix and on this active roster. He hasn't done anything spectacular in camp so far, but he has been solid and steady. And that's the way I'm looking at it. Olave, Tyson, Bailey, Lance, and Brown will be your definite 5 receivers. If we choose to keep 6, that is up in the air. Trey Palmer, to me, has the edge because of his return ability for punts. Trey Palmer has looked okay so far as a receiver. I think Kevin Austin as a receiver on the field has a little bit of an edge over Palmer. Kevin Austin probably has an edge on special teams when it comes to covering punts and kicks as well. We haven't seen Trey Palmer do any of that, but then Trey Palmer has that punt return ability that would give him an edge over Kevin Austin. Ronnie Bell has been solid. He hasn't really done a whole bunch through training camp, but he stood out a lot in mini camps and OTAs. So I've got Bell here. And then I've got Bub Means, who missed a lot of mini camp and OTAs. But Bub Means has been healthy through training camp, and he's looked pretty good. And that's a good thing for Means, because I had him at the bottom of this roster until those reports came out. So I've got Bub Means right now, in the 9th spot. Mason Tipton hasn't been involved at all in training camp. I think he missed a lot of OTAs and mini camp too. So Mason Tipton's unavailability has put him way at the bottom of this list. And then you've got Jalen Monroe Cropper, who has been around, but he just hasn't stood out much. And you've got Brock Rechsteiner, which there's going to be some inconsistencies with this undrafted guy, but he's getting some run. He's getting some chances. They've even put him in with second team first team. He's not just running with the third team. They're giving him chances to show something. His size is so unique. I'm positive that this wrestler's kid could be a really good special teams coverage guy. And, as a blocking wide receiver, I'm sure he would be dominant. He's just got to put it all together. I think Rex Steiner is the perfect practice squad candidate. But there's so much talent ahead of him. So yeah, that's where I'm at on the wide receivers. Barry and Brown right now, the biggest standout in camp. He's probably the camp MVP. All right, let's look at tight ends. The tight ends have all looked good. Cody Hardy has had an injury. He's been on an injury list, and Hardy hasn't participated at all. But everybody else has participated and has looked well. And as a matter of fact, the first couple of days of training camp, everything was focused on short, intermediate routes, and the tight ends were getting a heavy dose of it. Camp has evolved now with the pads on, and they're probably just emphasizing it more to try to get the ball to the wide receivers. But the tight ends have all done well, and the two standouts are Jawan Johnson and Maliki Matavao. Jawan Johnson is just a stud. To me, I feel like if we got a really good blocking tight end who can be productive as a pass catcher, that Jawan Johnson's days as a starter would be numbered. But Johnson just keeps fighting everybody off and keeping that spot. People tend, the coaches tend to say Johnson does enough as a blocker, but he's special as a receiver. And we see him drop balls, we see him fumble, and everybody has that bad taste in their mouth with Johnson. But when you look at his overall numbers at the end of last year, top 10 stuff, and the connection between Shuck and Johnson seems to be real. And Jawan Johnson's looking really good right now. The highlight for Johnson through training camp so far is that he's turning the ball upfield and making a lot happen after the catch. And that's something that makes me nervous with Johnson. When Johnson catches the ball in a real game and he turns upfield, I'm always afraid someone's going to strip the ball from him. So I have reservations, and we'll see what happens in real games because he probably won't get a lot of running in preseason, but he's doing what he can right now to stand out. Jawan Johnson is a standout. Noah Fant looked really good through OTAs and minicamp. I think he's had a couple of drops in training camp, but he's a very serviceable guy. He's a guy that can block. He's a guy that can make things happen with seam routes. Noah Fant was a nice addition to this team through free agency. And Oscar Delp through the draft. I already know Oscar Delp is an outstanding run blocker because I watched him do it with Georgia constantly, and it's exciting for me. I think Delp is getting, a lot of time to develop. He's kind of catching on. He wasn't standing out early. He's making a couple of plays here and there now. And I think we're going to get a heavy dose of Oscar Delp in these joint practices and the preseason games. And I think we're going to probably see some steady growth there too. He might not be ready to be the number 2 or number 1 tight end by the time the regular season starts, but there's no way we're getting rid of Delp. He's going to stay on this team, and I think there's a place for him. His run blocking, his ability to block is just sweet. And he's athletic and fast, so he can hold on to the ball. I can see Delp making a lot of things happen from the tight end position. Delp's progression could very well determine whether we keep 6 wide receivers or 5. If we can trust Delp to go out there and to contribute steadily, then we may only carry 5 wide receivers. And Delp will definitely be here. Do we keep 3 tight ends or 4? Well, if we only keep 5 wide receivers, we're definitely going to keep 4 tight ends. And Maliki Matavao is that guy. He looks like a stud. He looks so good in camp right now that you would think he was the highly drafted tight end. and you'd be reporting that this high draft pick is looking the part. He's getting better as a blocker, and he's so consistent as a receiver, and he's got size. It's a good thing to see. Maliki Matabau got beat on a blocking rep in special teams against Seattle. That just irked me to no end when we had that punt block. To believe it was Matabau that missed that block. And, what we're hearing from the coaches is that he's getting better and better. And being on the practice squad all year long, having a chance to be elevated and play in actual games often, because Joan missed some time. Taysom Hill had missed all that time. That Monteval's got a nice little mix now. He's looking really good. He may he may earn himself a roster spot as a fourth tight end on this team through through just how good he's been in camp. I don't know if we keep six wide receivers or four tight ends. That's what I'm saying. There may not be a six wide receiver that's performing as well as Monteval is as a fourth tight end on this team right now. Jair Mitchell-Payton is a solid run blocker, and he's a veteran, so I think he's got a place definitely on our practice squad. And I think if elevated and asked to contribute in a regular game, it would be a seamless transition. I think Mitchell Payton is a guy that you can depend on. And Maliki Matabau is a guy that if he keeps this progression going and he keeps playing at the level he's playing, then you're going to get the production you would get from a Mitchell Payton. So that's how I look at Mitch Payton. Trayton Welch is a great receiving tight end. I love Trayton Welch. I think that Trayton Welch, my little guy, I think Trayton Welch is a really good tight end. Not sure how good of a blocker he can ultimately be, but as a receiver, he's solid. And we don't know yet about Cody Hardy. That's your tight end room. Let's look at the offensive line. We're going to start with the offensive tackles. Kelvin Banks, Taliese Fuanga. There's a lot of playing upright right now in camp. You got the pads on now, so they're kind of, as young players, going through that annoying situation. Get your pad levels low. Do this, do that, try to be a better pro. Try to focus on, the fundamentals and stuff like that. Fuanga is a great tackle, and his second year at right tackle, his second year in this system, I expect Fuanga to be a solid starter. Kelvin Banks, if he gets beat in practice, he learns from the mistake and he usually doesn't repeat the mistake. So everybody's getting beat by Chase Young in training camp right now. That's the issue. Chase Young is whipping everybody. And, I would hate for these young tackles to feel bad about it because Chase Young would whip any tackle in practice. So there was a rep a couple of days ago where Chase Young beat Kelvin Banks, and then Chase Young went against Banks again, and Banks won the rep. And that's all you can expect from these young guys. Just learn from your mistakes and keep getting better. I have faith that Kelvin Banks and Taliese Fuanga are going to be two really good bookend tackles. What Fuanga did as a left tackle as a rookie impressed me a lot. And he had some injury issues last year, his first year at right tackle in the pros. So if he stays healthy and Banks keeps continuing to grow, I think we've got ourselves two good tackles. The only tackle I'm highlighting here is Will Sherman. Will Sherman, to me, plays tackle pretty well, but we used him a lot as a guard last year, too. And that versatility is it's invaluable. I think Sherman makes this team easily. And this year he's also been highlighting at center. And that's why I've got Will Sherman highlighted. It's not that he's doing anything so great in camp. It's that if it's a numbers game and this man can play left tackle, left guard, right guard, and now center, and right now Will Sherman is the third center on the team. Yeah, that's invaluable. Nobody's standing out performance wise, but I'm highlighting Will Sherman because a guy like that, oh yeah, that's a guy you want on your team. Awesome Richards, a really good player. We tried him at guard a little bit too, but he can play left side and right side. He's probably our primary backup left tackle right now. Awesome Richards. Then you've got some guys that's been on the team a couple of years. Barry Wesley and Easton Kilty. Wesley spent a lot of time on injured list last year, but was immediately ahead of Kilty once Wesley came back from the injury. Kilty was on the practice squad all year long. And then Alex Heron and Alex Wolschlager are the undrafted guys. I've got some faith that Alex Heron can develop. I was hoping that one of those guys, Heron or Wolschlager, would come in here and push either Awesome Richards or Will Sherman. I think Will Sherman's job is set for this team. And Kellen Moore had Awesome Richards before at Dallas, and Richards is, he's a better backup tackle than what we had for a couple of years. So there's a chance Heron or Wolschlager can show enough in preseason to earn that practice squad spot ahead of Wesley or Kilty. And that's the big battle right now. Who's going to make the practice squad? Is it going to be Wesley or Kilty or Heron or Wolschlager? I've got a lot of faith in Heron. There's some ability there. That's your tackles. Let's take a look at the guards. Yep, David Edwards, Cesar Ruiz, Dylan Reduns, Jeremiah Wright. I have Xavier Truss listed here too. Truss can play tackle. So Truss is valuable as a tackle. He may be listed as a tackle on the Saints roster. But I know Truss can play guard, and we have very few guards right now. Like I said, Will Sherman can play guard. Awesome Richards can play guard. So you've got some backups that aren't even mentioned here. Torricelli Simpkins was tried at guard a lot last year. So there's a lot of guys that can play guard that aren't on this list. David Edwards is the part. He's obviously a better starting left guard than Dylan Reduns, and he's a better starting guard than Cesar Ruiz. David Edwards could be highlighted here, but I didn't highlight him. I didn't highlight Cesar Ruiz either. Those guys are our starters, and they're going to have to play really well. I don't have any worries about Edwards. Of course, I worry about Ruiz. And if either one of those guys go down, Edwards or Ruiz, your primary backup guard is Dylan Reduns. He was our starting left guard last year. He's the primary backup left guard, and this year we've been playing him at right guard a lot with the second team. I don't know who's playing left guard on the second team in training camp, but we've got Reduns at right guard because he's played a lot at left guard, so we want him to get comfortable there. And yeah, he would be the guy to go in. Reduns would go in if Ruiz went down. But our draft pick, Jeremiah Wright, looks really good. Once the pads came on and he had one-on-one work, he looked good. When he's out there in team drills, he looks pretty good. Wright still has a way to go when it comes to pass protection. He always has had a long way to go for that. But as a run blocker, he looks really good, and he's big and physical. And yeah, there's a lot of talk about Jeremiah Wright looking pretty good. I think it was NOF. What's his name? My brain's not working. Nick Underhill, who sent some footage to former Saint tackle Teron Armstead, just sent him some footage of some offensive linemen. Uh, he didn't say what he wanted him to look at, but when Teron responded, he wanted to know who 65 was, which is Jeremiah Wright. So Teron Armstead saw something out of Wright too. That's the guy I'm highlighting here. Jeremiah Wright. Young guy. He's got a lot to learn. He's not even the primary backup right now at right guard, but he looks the part. He's definitely going to be on the team. And yeah, ideally, it would be nice if Wright would show enough to be able to start, you know, would show that he can compete with Dylan Reduns as that primary backup. Everything sounds good so far. Coming out of training camp with Wright. And the final spot on the offensive line is center. Eric McCoy is highlighted here. When Eric McCoy is healthy, Eric McCoy stands out. He's not losing any one-on-one battles in camp, and he's operating perfectly. And the team drills, those screen passes, man, when you get a screen going and you see Eric McCoy out in front, way downfield, making blocks, it gets you excited. As long as that man stays healthy, yeah, we've got a chance to be a special offensive line. Torricelli Simpkins has been our primary backup center, and he has not lost that spot yet. We're rotating a lot of players in and out in different positions, a lot of players getting a chance to play with the first team and second team just to see how they fare. But it's been Torricelli Simpkins snapping the ball to Spencer Rattler this whole time in training camp so far. And Simpkins impressed at center when he was an undrafted rookie last year. It's when we tried to play him at guard, and then, that's when he started to show some blemishes. And when you see the final numbers on Simpkins from last year, a lot of people think, yeah, this guy he isn't up to par for the league. I think that's why. It's because we felt really good about him at center, and he was just getting a chance to play at guard. Well, he hasn't lost the backup center spot yet. But like I mentioned, tackle Will Sherman, who can play guard too, is the number 3 center. So is Simpkins and Sherman as your backup centers good enough where we don't try to address it? We made a move late last year to go get Fortner because we weren't satisfied with Simpkins as our primary backup center or any other player as our primary backup center. So still something to look at. That extra, like I say, once Brissy goes to IR, there's 2 extra roster spots, and maybe a backup center is something we look at. But that's the way it stands right now. All right, that's the offense. Now let's do a roster breakdown through the first week of training camp for our defensive players. And first, we're going to look at defensive ends. Defensive tackle, defensive ends. When you're in a 3-4, you've got your nose tackle, and then your defensive ends in a 3-4 can typically be tackles, defensive tackles as well. But these are the guys that I know are allocated as defensive ends. Vernon Broughton is the standout right now. He can play nose tackle. He can play defensive end. And he's been getting a lot of runs since Brian Brissy was out. So Broughton is the guy that we are hoping is going to step up and be that starter. Next to Davin Gawdshaw, who looks to be your starting nose tackle, it seems to be Vernon Broughton on one side and probably Nathan Shepard on the other side. Nathan Shepard, such a good veteran presence. He's good against the run. I think Nathan Shepard's got that job. Now, I am one to believe our second round draft pick, Christian Miller, could challenge Nathan Shepard for a lot of reps. If we're going to run a true 3-down lineman set and Davin Gawdshaw is your nose tackle, Vernon Broughton is a guy that's going to be on one side. You could have Nathan Shepard on the other side. You could have Christian Miller. That's the way I'm looking at it. Christian Miller is suffering with an injury right now. I think a toe. Oh, the Saints and toes, man. I don't know what to think about it, but you've got Miles Cole and you've got Jay Ver Suggs, who are also getting run at defensive end. We already know Cam Jordan can do a little bit of that, but yeah, it doesn't seem like you got a lot going on right now at this position now that Brissy is gone, but I have to emphasize Christian Miller. And another guy that I'm going to list at defensive tackle, Jonathan Ridgeway. He's another guy that can slide over and play that defensive end position. So this position isn't as thin as it appears to be here. Let's look at the defensive tackles. Davin Gottschall, he's lost 10 or 12 pounds. He's come in here and he's looked better than he did his first year with the Saints last year. He was our starter all year long. Gottschall has proven to be a good run-stopping nose tackle in this league. And he was just adequate last year, but he played the part, and it was the other people around him that really need to step stuff up. The problem I had with Gottschall was he got very few reps in the last couple of games last year. We were trying out Christian Boyd and Jonathan Ridgeway at that position at nose tackle, and Gottschall, there was a game, I think, when he only had 10 snaps toward the end of the year. He always gets that veteran day off, and you worry about the weight. Well, he's dropped some weight, 10 or 12 pounds, and everybody says he looks a lot better right now. I thought Gottschall was a potential cut or trade, especially since we got so many bodies here. But no, I'm going to highlight Gottschall as a guy that's standing out right now. Your primary backup nose tackle is Christian Miller, and that's what he's been doing with the second team. But they have put Miller at the end position as well. And then you've got Jonathan Ridgeway, the first player we signed in free agency, actually. And coaching staff likes him. They like the versatility, and he can play all along the line, and that is something I think Christian Miller can do. That's something I think Vernon Broughton can do. And it's something Ridgeway can do. You know, Ridgeway got a lot of chance to show some stuff at the end of the year. And, yeah, we immediately re-signed him. So I think Ridgeway's made this team. Christian Boyd, big nose tackle, can stop the run. He's got a little bit of get up and go from time to time, but, you know, Boyd is one of those guys that he's made the active roster for the last year, and then he might only be a practice squad guy this year. Silver, he's been on the injury list, so we haven't seen a lot of him, and so has Harris. Everybody knows the story about Harris. You know, he would have been a fourth round pick had he not had a lot of trouble with off-season stuff in college, and then he was injured during the draft process, so nobody drafted him, and the Saints were the guy to get him, and the nation looked at Xavier Harris as a top undrafted free agent to get. The Saints get him. People say he would have been a fourth round pick. At 6'7.5", that's really tall for a defensive lineman. I worry about pad level when you get a guy that big. He's got a few reps in college against really good players that look so good that you just feel like if he puts it all together, he could be a special player. Now, nobody wanted Harris to draft him, and a few days had went by before the Saints signed him as an undrafted guy. So it seemed like most teams were avoiding him as an undrafted guy as well because of the off the field stuff. And he's injured right now, so we're not able to see anything. Hopefully, Silver and Harris can come back from their injuries and participate in preseason. And we can, sorry, I had to sneeze. And we can see something from Harris or Silver. But I'm fine with Ridgeway and Boyd sitting on top of this list. And if Boyd doesn't make the active roster, hopefully we can keep him on the practice squad. And then Harris has a chance to stay on the practice squad as well. If Harris has a chance to come in and play and he shows something in preseason, then maybe that'll get other teams interested in wanting to snag him. So that's where we're at with the defensive line. Overall, it's been pretty good in camp. There are times when the offensive line looks really good, and there's times when the defensive line is winning. So it's a back and forth. Kind of want that and we'll see how good these guys perform in preseason. But I think Vernon Broughton, Davin Godchaux, Christian Miller, Nathan Shepard, Jonathan Ridgway are definitely the five you would keep. And yeah, Harris, come on, man. Come back from that injury and show us something. Let's look at the edge rushers. Chase Young, he's the man. He's unblockable right now. Chase Young, a top five draft pick, and he didn't stay with the Commanders, and then he had 1 year with the 49ers, and they weren't interested in retaining him, so we gave him this 1 year prove it deal, and he proved it. Then we signed him to an extension, and then he misses the first month plus this past season. But in 12 games, he manages 10 sacks. And this year, he's a leader. And it's easy to be a leader without having to be, the rah rah Drew Brees type of leader. It's easy to be a leader when you're so dominant on the field that people are going to follow you because of your ability. And Chase Young is also a vocal player. He likes to talk smack to the offense, and he's a motivator, and he moves around. He's got a lot of energy, and yeah, so he's that kind of a leader. That might have been the issue with Chase Young when it came to the other stops he's had before the Saints, is that everyone sees how dominant of a physical player he is. And if you don't put it together down in and down out, you start to question the effort and stuff like that. Well, Chase Young seems to be happy in New Orleans. And if he can have a completely healthy season, I see no reason why he couldn't have 12 or 15 sacks. Chase Young is a stud. And the other guy I'm highlighting here is Anthony Jennings. I thought he might have been on the cusp of not even making the team because we have so many players here at edge. But Jennings is a really good run stopping edge rusher. He sets the edge as a run stopper better than anybody else on the team. Comparable to Chase Young and, of course, Cam Jordan, who's done it his whole career. Carl Granderson's a guy too, I mean, he's going to be our starter opposite Chase Young, and we're going to probably rotate in Cam Jordan quite a bit. And having those two veterans, it feels good. I feel confident in our edge group. I think Grando is really good in coverage, and I think both Granderson and Cam Jordan can play the run good and can play the pass. So I think we're three deep there. And Anthony Jennings, standing out in camp right now as a run stopper, I think he has a great chance of making the team. Tyree Wilson has this length. He also has a lot of football under his belt when he was with the Raiders as an interior pass rusher, which is wild to me. He's not big enough to be a defensive tackle, but in some sort of NASCAR package with Tyree Wilson's long arms, he can make things happen in the middle of the defensive line. So I'm interested to see Tyree Wilson standing up and rushing the passer and getting his hand in the dirt and doing things there too. I've got Tyree Wilson listed ahead of Anthony Jennings right now, and I think we're five deep at edge. And I think your sixth edge would be Chris Rump, but I don't have him on this list because we've been playing Chris Rump at linebacker because we want to see if Rump is too valuable to let go. We know he can play edge. He made plays in the limited time he had in regular season games. He's always been on the active roster. But Tyree Wilson and Anthony Jennings are the edges I've got here to go along with Chase Young, Carl Granderson, Cameron Jordan. And if Rump makes this team, he'll be a linebacker. Michael Heldman has been okay as an undrafted guy. Fadil Diggs is a seventh round guy from last year, a year before. So Hellman and Diggs is one of those things. They probably feel like practice squad guys to me right now. And then we'll see if Chris Rump makes the team or if Chris Rump is on the practice squad. Let's look at the linebackers. And yeah, I've got Chris Rump listed as a linebacker. Maybe Sermon ends up on the practice squad. And maybe Chris Rump right now is battling with Jalen Ford for the fifth linebacker spot. Ford is an excellent special teamer, and I think Ford is a really solid linebacker. I think Chris Rump's versatility would be what keeps him on the active roster, keeps him on the team. But as far as playing linebacker, I think Ford is got to be better than Rump. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see in preseason. But I really like Jalen Ford. But your top four linebackers are there, and they're looking great. Caden Ellis is a stud. Everyone says he's in here replacing Demario Davis. No, not really. Pete Werner's going to be the middle linebacker, and Caden Ellis is going to be more of that will linebacker. And so it's Pete Werner that's taken Demario Davis's place. And I don't have Werner highlighted, but Werner has been very good. He's looking good against the run. He's looking good in coverage. He's even rushing the passer and doing well. And Werner's kind of zip-lipped about scheme and lining up. The one interview I saw, he just kept saying, "I don't want to get into that because that's too much into what our game plan is," and he doesn't want to give it up. Which makes me think that Werner is going to have a chance to show something as a pass rusher this year, maybe more of an opportunity than he ever had as a Saint. His issue last year was coverage to me. He wasn't getting deep enough in coverage, and he was getting beat there. But Werner against the run and Werner sideline to sideline has always been solid. And Werner is always among the team's leaders in tackles. So Ellis is a guy that can rush the passer, and people are saying Caden Ellis is one of the best pass rushing linebackers in the league. And he can cover and he can play the run. So, and Ellis is a natural leader. He was a low draft pick for the Saints. He was here for 4 years and he never really had a chance until Pete Werner got hurt and Ellis had to play half a season. And he ended up with 7 sacks in that Dennis Allen defense. And then Atlanta took a chance on him. And even though Atlanta hasn't been a great team, when they had Ellis, Ellis was a guy that you had to factor. Kellen Moore said last year when we played Atlanta, Caden Ellis was the guy that they had to focus on. They had to start with him and then work their way out when it came to protection schemes and everything else. And of course, Moore liked Ellis enough to bring him back to New Orleans and get him on this team. And I think Ellis is going to be a special player for us. And I think Pete Werner is going to be very solid. The other player I have highlighted here is Danny Stutzman. He looked great as a rookie last year, and he managed to get on the field a lot. Now, we never put Stutzman in to take Demario Davis's place. Nobody comes in and takes Demario Davis's place. So Stutzman was coming in a lot of the time to take Werner's place and Isaiah Stallbird as well. And so a lot of people were thinking, well, maybe we're down on Werner. I was too. I was thinking we might even trade Werner. But Werner's a solid player. And the truth of the matter is, Danny Stutzman has been playing a lot with the first team and the second team. And when he comes in for first team reps, it's a 50-50 deal. He's taking Pete Werner's place 50% of the time. He's taking Caden Ellis's place 50% of the time. So Stutzman is a guy that they just want to get on the field. And I don't think since there's not a Demario Davis here anymore, they're going to put Stutzman in no matter what. I heard we were running dime coverages with the starters where Stutzman was out there instead of Werner or Caden Ellis. So I'm kind of off the bandwagon of thinking Werner's got one foot out the door. It's just that Danny Stutzman has put his foot in the door, and they want to give him as many opportunities as he can get. And if you're putting Stutzman out there in a dime package, he must be improving greatly as a coverage linebacker as well. Isaiah Stallbird is a pretty good coverage linebacker, being a former safety, and Stallbird showed a lot as a pass rusher last year too. Third down is where we wanted to get Stallbird involved last year, so Stallbird hasn't regressed at all, and I think your top four linebackers here are shoe-ins. I think Jalen Ford as a special teamer is too valuable to give up on. It's whether you want Chris Rumpf on this team or not as a designated linebacker slash edge rusher, or whether Ford makes the team. And it's tough. That's going to be a tough cut to make, and I'm interested in seeing what happens. All right, let's finish the video out with the defensive backs and special teams. We're going to look at the cornerbacks first, and I've got Kool-Aid McKinstry and Quincy Riley highlighted, our two starters, and they've looked the part. Kool-Aid McKinstry looks like he's taken another step. He improved toward the end of the year last year, and it seems as though he's that good already, and that's what I was hoping. He suffered with a minor ankle deal, but I think he's back out there and practicing again. And he wins some rep against Olave and uh and Tyson, and then he loses some reps against those guys. And but Kool-Aid looks really good overall. He looks like a bona fide number one, and that's something we were hoping for. And Quincy Riley looks like he's picked up right where he left off, and that he's getting better. And Quincy Riley has made a few plays in camp, interceptions, and that's really nice to see, getting your hands on the ball. People thought that Quincy Riley was going to get pushed as a starter by Martin Emerson when we brought Emerson in. Emerson has not looked good in camp. Isaac Yadam is our number three outside cornerback right now, and I think it's by far. I think it's a wide spot. It's a wide gap. Yadam's just looked okay. Emerson just hasn't looked good at all. One-on-one kind of deals is where Emerson gets exposed a lot. Now, Martin Emerson says he's a lifelong Saints fan, so there's a lot of fans out there that really want Emerson to be the guy. And he did have a good rookie campaign. I don't think Emerson's at risk of losing his job. I think his veteran presence is valuable. And I don't think there's anybody else under Emerson that's really pushing him for an outside spot, though Rajon Wright has been a guy that's been on our team and was on the active roster for Brandon Staley and Kellen Moore last year. So Wright's just looked okay. TJ Hall has been okay as a 6th-round pick. Dallas Beanham has looked fine. He's made a few plays, and I think I've mentioned this already. Dallas Beanham was really good in preseason last year, so we'll probably see that again this year. And then Mike Reed, the guy that we just signed when we got rid of Beanie Bishop. Mike Reed, new on the team, so he's probably just learning things. But Jaden Price is the other guy I have highlighted here. Jaden Price was our backup nickel through OTAs and minicamp, and he was struggling at times. We haven't we had Beanie Bishop as the third nickel during that time. We got rid of Beanie Bishop. I think our coaching staff is comfortable with Terrell Burgess being a backup nickel. But Jaden Price has been the number two guy, and when Beanie Bishop was let go, the number three guy became Lorenzo Styles Jr., and Styles has looked really good. And as a matter of fact, as good as Price has looked as the backup nickel, we've been giving Styles a lot of run with the second team at backup nickel now, too. It's not a slight against Price, though. Price has turned a corner. Maybe he learned something from minicamp and OTAs, because Price went from not being so good to being pretty good. He's making plays. Price is looking really good. Price is looking so good that he may have a roster spot when it's all said and done. And if he does, that means a guy like Terrell Burgess won't make the team. And Terrell Burgess is the coach's kid, so Price would have to show this throughout preseason. And I'm excited. I'm excited about Jaden Price. He was another guy that looked good in preseason last year. He can play outside, but he's showing he can be a valuable piece at nickel. Now let's finish the video with the safety so we can knock out the other nickel options. Jonas Sanker, our number one safety, who's definitely going to be our starting nickelback. He's made the transition well. He hasn't gotten his butt kicked out there, and he hasn't made a lot of great plays out there, but he's shown that he can make the transition, and I think there's some confidence there that Sanker's going to be just fine as our starting nickel. And our starting safeties, Justin Reed, Julian Blackman. I've got Blackman highlighted because Blackman's making plays. He's got a couple of interceptions. He's looking good in red zone. He's showing that leadership, the vocal veteran presence that Justin Reed and Julian Blackman give you in the back end, getting everybody else lined up. That's important. And I've got Blackman highlighted because of that. Jordan Howden has looked good. Jordan Howden's got a place on this team, special teams, and as a safety that can play if need be and look pretty good. Lorenzo Styles is the next guy I've highlighted. He's looked fantastic. He's looked really good. Like I said, Price looks good as our backup nickel, and Styles looks so good as the third nickel that he's getting run as the second nickel now because we want to see what the young guy can do with other players, I guess. And I got Styles highlighted because he's made an interception in one-on-one drills, which is really hard to do. Styles has been pretty shut down in them one-on-one drills. That's impressive. But what's also impressive is Styles has been playing gunner on special teams, and apparently he looks different than everybody else on the field. Styles jumps off the page when it comes to special teams. And you want to talk about replacing a JT Gray. When we drafted Styles, that's the first thing I said. Gunner. He could be a special player. And right now, he looks the part. So, Terrell Burgess, he's a versatile guy, great special teamer, safety, nickelback. It's going to be hard to cut Terrell Burgess. But I think there's a thin line. I think Styles makes this team, no doubt about it. And Burgess, as a veteran guy, if you keep Burgess, you're probably not keeping Jaden Price. You're definitely not keeping Rajon Wright. And we're just really thin at outside corner. Jaden Price has a chance to play outside corner and nickel. So if I had to do a 53-man roster breakdown right now, I had Price off this team and I had Terrell Burgess on the team. But if I had to do one right now, I would put Price on the team and take Burgess off. And taking Burgess off the team just breaks my heart. But, Burgess has a lot of veteran experience. I don't know if he can stay on the practice squad or not. Other teams have injuries. Burgess has experience. He could be one of those vets. And there's only so many vets you can keep on your practice squad anyway, apparently. I think there's a limit. I don't know if Burgess still falls under that or he's past that now. But the last guy I'll mention is Elliot Davison. He hasn't done enough in camp to stand out, I don't think. But he was a standout in preseason last year for me. So Davison can definitely make the practice squad. There's your DBs, and the last thing we'll talk about is special teams. You got punter Ryan Wright, who looks so good compared to all the other punters we've had since Thomas Morstead that I'm highlighting him. Ryan Wright goes out there, he punts the ball, he's directional, he looks good, he's got a large leg. It just looks like a top-notch punter, which we haven't had since Morstead. I'm highlighting Ryan Wright because As soon as the ball went off his foot, you're like, oh, okay, we finally got a punter again. Isn't that amazing? Former Tulane guy. I'm glad we have him. And then the kicker battle between Charlie Smith and Tanner Brown. Tanner Brown and Charlie Smith are looking really good. They're both pretty accurate. Tanner Brown missed a short field goal recently, and you hate to see that from a guy coming from the, UFL or whatever. But Charlie Smith had those issues the first couple of years he was with us too. Charlie Smith has been very accurate. He's only missed one kick, I think, in camp. I think Tanner Brown's only missed two. But I'm highlighting Charlie Smith because both those guys, Smith and Brown, have tremendous legs. So, but Charlie Smith is a guy. I think he's probably got the best leg in the league if he can just get the accuracy down. And he's only missed one kick so far in camp. I got to highlight Charlie Smith. And of course, long snapper Zach Wood. There's no challenge there. As long as he's able to play football, Zach Wood's going to be worthy of being a captain on special teams and one of the best long snappers in the league. So there you go. That is my roster breakdown for this early camp. A lot of stuff to talk about. We had a whole week worth of camp to talk about, and I wanted to break down every last player here so you guys can know where they're at. Subscribe to my channel, Rosenfield 10, and I'm going to continue to do this throughout camp. I might have an issue with watching the preseason games because of my work schedule. But once the regular season starts, I'll be doing breakdowns of every game. I'll be putting the stats up so you can see them, unlike a lot of YouTube channels who don't do that. I'll be the guy that does that. So put me in your subscriptions and you'll have the Saints covered all regular season long. And I'll be doing at least one video every week breaking down training camp. So subscribe. And until the next one, let me know what you think in the comments. I respond to my comments. And I'll talk to you later. Who dat?